Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodhanandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Yasodhanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari
Thank you so much, Ananda Vrindavan, Prabhu. Jayam Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parvikacharya Ashtotar Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parvikacharya Ashtotar Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Ko Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Nantakoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Adirayat Nasta Prai Subhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning we'll be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 4, Text 67. Matsevaya patitam te sālokyādi chatushtayam nichante sevaya purnaha kuto anyat kala viplutam matsevaya patitam te sālokyādi chatushtayam nichanti sevaya purna kutonyat kalavi plutam matsevaya patitam te sālokyādi chatushtayam nichanti sevaya purna kutonyat kala viplutam matsevaya pratitam te sālokyādi chatushtayam nichanti sevaya purna kutonyat kala viplutam matsevaya pratitam te Naveen Prabhu, would you like to try? Tonyat kala viplutam. Mataji's. Anyone online would like to chant? Okay. Synonyms. Matsevaya, by being engaged fully in my transcendental loving service. Pratitam, automatically achieved. Te, such pure devotees, are fully satisfied. Sālokya adi chatushtayam, the four different types of liberation. Sālokya, sārūpya, sāmīpya, sārṣṭi. What to speak of sāyujya? Na, not. Ichante, desire. Sevaya, simply by devotional service. Purnaha, fully complete. Kutaha, where is the question? Anyat, other things. Kala vilpluptam, which are finished in the course of time. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. My devotees, who are always satisfied to be engaged in my loving service, are not interested even in the four principles of liberation: sālokya, sārūpya, sāmīpya, and sārṣṭi. Although these are automatically achieved by their service, what then is to be said of such perishable happiness as elevation to the higher planetary systems? Purport. Srila Bilva Mangala Thakur has estimated the value of liberation as follows. Mukti swayam mukuli tanjalai sevati sman dharmartha kama gata ya samaya pratikshaya. Bilva Mangala Thakur realized that if one develops his natural devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Mukti stands before him with folded hands to offer all kinds of service. In other words, the devotee is already liberated. There is no need for him to aspire for different types of liberation. The pure devotee automatically achieves liberation, even without desiring it. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnana Jana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapada Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaisnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamsha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavanishwari Vishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hare Priya Vancha kalpatribhyascha kripa sindhibhyevacha patitanam pavinebhyo vaishnavyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everyone. I think the last time I sat on a Vyasa-san was when I was in Italy. So it's been a while. We had visiting sannyasis. Paneshwari Mataji spoke for me a few times on Fridays. Thank you so much. I was trying to look for that video of me, but I think they deleted it. What? Yeah. What happened was, during the last 10 minutes of my talk, Mataji fell. She, I guess she forgot to take her medications, or her blood sugar was very low, so she fainted. So the whole ambulance came, and it was like a whole scene, you know. Yeah. Actually, it was the last day of the midterm GBC meeting, and all of the senior Vaishnavas, they were in that meeting. So Ananda Tirtha Prabhu, he said, Govardhan, how would you like to give the Sunday feast talk? And I said, in Italy? I'm going to do it. You know. So I prepared for it. But yeah, it was nice to speak to the Italian Yatra. And the Mataji, she was trying to keep up translating for me. So Srila Prabhupada, he would often say that in Kali Yuga, people are mad after sense gratification. What does the word mad mean in this context? What do you think, Sareshwar? Extremely desirous. Crazy, exactly. Mad means crazy. But the problem is people don't know that they're crazy. Srila Prabhupada, he would use the example of a mental asylum. The patients, they don't know that they're crazy. And even the doctors, they want to treat them with medicine. but they say, I'm not crazy. Not only that, but Srila Prabhupada says sometimes the patients, they would go and attack the doctors, despite the doctors trying to help them. So similarly, the devotees, Srila Prabhupada, this ISKCON movement, were trying to give the treatment to the people of Kali Yuga, but they refuse. And sometimes they're very combative also. Srila Prabhupada also uses this example of a prison. A prisoner, he may say, I don't care for the government, but he's forced to live in the prison. So Srila Prabhupada would say, this is foolishness. So people would often deny the existence of God, but that's craziness. Because everyone's controlled by Krishna's energy, especially the time factor. Yet many people say, I don't believe in God. Srila Prabhupada, he would also use the example of, they would use sense enjoyment in equation with happiness. They would equate sense pleasure, or what they call enjoyment, to be happiness. And Srila Prabhupada used the example of a camel. I don't think I've ever tasted cactus before, but I heard it's very slimy, you know. But a camel, it chews on a cactus, and with its thorns, its tongue gets cut up, it gets punctured, and it's tasting the blood mixed with the cactus. But the poor camel doesn't know that it's actually causing him harm, but still he enjoys it. So similarly, people work hard day and night. I don't know that verse, but it says people first start foaming at the mouth, like a horse, you know, working hard, 12-hour plus shifts. And then they think themselves to be very happy. But we all know this is a type of craziness. And they don't know that this desire for sense enjoyment is the very cause or the source of their anxiety and distress. Yet they think themselves to be enjoying. Prahlad Maharaj, he says that some people, they consider money to be sweeter than honey. And Rishabhadev in the 5th canto, he says sometimes, or before I'll say this, Srila Prabhupada says there's a yellowish color stool. Does anyone know what Srila Prabhupada or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is referring to? A yellowish type of stool. Gold. So Rishabhadev, he says sometimes the living entity is interested in this yellow stool known as gold and runs after it. That gold is the source of material opulence and envy, and it can enable one to afford illicit sex, gambling, meat eating, and intoxication. Those whose minds are overcome by the mode of passion are attracted by the color of gold. When Parikshit Maharaj, when he saw Kali Yuga personified, beating the cows of the bull, he was ready to kill Kali. Srila Prabhupada points out that this is the duty of the king. When he sees injustice or adharma, he should act immediately. Not that we decide by votes. So Parikshit Maharaj, he was ready to kill Kali, but Kali protested. He said, "My dear king, please give me places to reside." And Parikshit Maharaj gave him 4 places where there are brothels or prostitution houses, liquor shops, slaughterhouses, and gambling casinos. However, Kali Yuga requested him to give him only 1 place where these are included. And Parikshit Maharaj gave him the place where gold is stored. Gold encompasses the 4 principles of sin, and therefore, according to spiritual life, gold should be avoided as far as possible. If there is gold, there is certainly illicit sex, meat eating, gambling, and intoxication. And because people in the Western world have a great deal of gold, they are victims of these 4 sins. Srila Prabhupada, he says that a person with a bad liver, he generally passes yellow stool. And the color of the stool attracts a materialistic person. I had a patient one time, and I can't remember what the disease was. But the CNAs, the nurse assistants, they called me. They said, you need to look at this. I'm sorry to be graphic. But when I checked on this patient, his stool was gold. Like it looked like gold, shiny. I was thinking, whoa. So Bhagavatam knows what it's talking about. So the color of gold is very glittering, and a materialistic person becomes very much attracted by this yellow color. And just to prove my point, Rishabhadev, he also says, when a person considers sense gratification the aim of life, he certainly becomes mad after materialistic living and engages in all kinds of sinful activity. Prahlad Maharaj, he says, Nate vidu swartha gatim hi Vishnu. That people don't know that the aim of life, the goal of life, is to render devotional service to Vishnu or Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada explains that the devotees are akama. They don't have any material desires. And if we look at the religious world, generally speaking, people are concerned with two things. How can I get rid of my sins? How can I nullify my sins? And how can I go to heaven to enjoy the pleasures there? Therefore, you see in the Christian tradition, the first thing they ask or talk about is sin. And they make you feel like you're a victim, right? And then you need a savior to come help you. Srila Prabhupada, he would say, why don't you teach them how to be sinless? Because in the Yavana or Malecha world, where gambling, meat-eating, intoxication, and illicit sex is the norm, they don't know any better. I had a co-worker one time, and we just got paid, And she was so happy, she was jumping for joy with my other co-workers. And I asked her, why are you so happy? Where are you going? She said, I'm going to my second home. And I said, where is that? She said, the casino. She said, the casino. And I was thinking, right as soon as you got paid, you're going to spend it on at the casinos, in hopes that I'm going to win. And in relation to eating, Srila Prabhupada says that a ferocious eater or eating is a cause of diabetes, and undernourishment is a cause of tuberculosis. This is the medical science. In regards to illicit sex, Srila Prabhupada, he would narrate the pastime of Kashyapa Muni and his wife Aditi. Aditi was overwhelmed by desire to enjoy with Kashyapa Muni. And although Kashyapa Muni didn't want to, due to his affection for his wife, he agreed. And in the Bhagavatam, it says that it was a very inauspicious time, the wrong place and the wrong consciousness, wrong intention. And so the result was, Kashyapa Muni told his wife, your sons will be demons. And who are those sons? Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, the first two demons. And then Srila Prabhupada, he says, this is the result of untimely sex life. When there is sexual intercourse according to scriptural injunction, there is no sin. And Krishna mentions this in the Bhagavad Gita. And in the purport, it mentions how people want to be elevated to the higher planetary system. So there's this idea of atonement. In the Catholic or Christian world, there's this idea of confession. Has anyone ever went to confession before? You, Mataji? I've never done it. can you get a mic and tell us the? I'm sorry, you don't have to say what you're gonna, but okay. But like I don't know the process. Like, do you schedule an appointment? So this is Catholics or Catholicism?
Yeah, it was just for what was it? Confirmation. So I was a little girl. Yeah, I guess it was untraditional because there were so many children that needed to confess their sins. And so, yeah, I just sat next to the priest. It was so awkward because, like, there's so many children, like, in line. Yeah, and I don't know, I guess I wasn't paying attention so much in class or something, so I was just kind of making up sins because I didn't really know. So I was just sitting there. Yeah, but I never experienced that, like, sitting in a booth. I feel like that'd be really interesting. I didn't experience that. It was just kind of in the open, a little bit awkward, like 10-year-old child.
Thank you so much. Srila Prabhupada. But Srila Prabhupada, he narrated the story of how there was a priest, and that was his service, was to hear the confessions of people. And there was a, I guess, attractive lady, and she was a prostitute, or, you know, this was her sin. Huh? I'm not sure, I heard it somewhere. And then, so the priest, he was agitated by the women's confessions, and he actually went and tried to find her out. And then he fell down with her. So sometimes the priests or people acting in that role, it's a danger. You know. Similarly, the devotees, we should be careful with our association. Sometimes their consciousness carries that, it goes into our consciousness, and we become polluted by their desires, things like that. And you see that Parikshit Maharaj, he was tested by Shukadeva Goswami. First, he told him, you know, what is the process of atonement? And Shukadeva Goswami told Parikshit Maharaj, my dear king, as a pot containing liquor cannot be purified even if washed in the waters of many rivers, non-devotees cannot be purified by the process of atonement, even if they perform them very well, because they don't uproot the desire or they don't purify the heart. I remember also going to Sunday church or school. My cousins and I, we would get picked up by a bus. It was kind of embarrassing, you know. Like a school bus, the pastor, he would go around the area and pick up the kids. And my cousins and I, we sat in the back. And as soon as we got to the church grounds, we would ditch church, you know, go to like a local park. And then, yeah. And then right before the class would end, we would go back to the church, and then we'd get dropped off. And I would feel bad because my mom, she would ask, what did you learn in church? And I had to tell a lie, you know. But yeah, I was not so interested in religion, actually. Double sin, triple sin right now. But I was not interested in religion because I saw a lot of hypocrisy. I remember one church, people were singing, you know, hymns, and they were feeling very holy, you know, putting their hands up, crying, shouting. And then as soon as we got out of church, they would be honking, smoking, yelling, cursing. And that really turned me off with what I saw. So, although they want to be purified by some process of atonement, they cannot do it. Shukadeva Goswami gives an example of like a tree. You may cut it, keep cutting it, but it will still grow because the root is still there. You need to uproot this tree. Srila Prabhupada, he use an interesting example. Is someone who is planning to resign from their work. Unless they have a better arrangement or a better position, then that resignation is useless. But if they resign from their work and they have a better engagement, then that resignation is all right. So similarly, people cannot give up their bad habits because they don't know or they don't have any positive activity to replace it with. And then Srila Prabhupada said, what is the value of that type of renunciation? So that's why you'll find many people falling back down into their lower nature activities. I love this story and I'm going to tell it again. I had a best friend named Mikey. And he was very intelligent, you know. He was one of the smartest people I knew. But as soon as he was in a relationship, he was like putty. in the hands of a woman, you know. He didn't speak, he didn't talk back to her. He just agreed with whatever she said. So he was a victim of this lust. And so my friend Mikey, he wanted to cancel his gym membership. You know, he said, man, I'm paying $30 for this gym membership. I'm not even going as often as I like. Can you go with me? And I went with him, you know, to be support. As soon as we got to the counter, it was a male worker. And as soon as he heard my friend say cancel, he said, just a second. And so what he did, he brought over a young, so-called attractive woman to help him. And what happened? He couldn't say no. Not only that, but he extended his membership. So he went there to cancel his membership, but because he was a victim to women, he extended his membership. And so he also talked about this temporary happiness or destination, that people want to go to the higher planetary systems. But according to Bhagavad Gita, that place, the heavenly planets, is also temporary. But people don't know that. It's kind of hard speaking to a young person because they think that heaven is the spiritual world, where it's eternal. And when we tell them that the spiritual world is actually higher or beyond this material world, it goes over their head. So we should be careful. Srila Prabhupada, he was giving a lecture, and there was one Indian student, and he didn't want to take to Krishna consciousness. So he said, you should give us technology. Srila Prabhupada, he said, I have come here to give some culture, and you have come to imitate the Western civilization by technology. That is the difference. You'll remain a beggar, I shall remain a giver. That is the difference. So everyone is chasing the Western standard of living. More cars, bigger house, more this, more enjoyment. But Srila Prabhupada, he wanted us to give something more valuable than that, which is Krishna consciousness. What is that pastime of... There was someone that would approach, I think, Sanatana Goswami or Rupa Goswami, and he wanted Sanatana Goswami. And he heard that he had a touchstone, you know, and this touchstone, it says that whatever you touch with it, it turns into gold. So he approached Sanatana Goswami for this touchstone. And Sanatana Goswami said, oh, you want that? Yeah, it's right over there. It was in the garbage heap, you know, so he took it. And then due to some intelligence, he realized if this is something that is very, according to me, very valuable, why did Sanatana Goswami throw it in the garbage? So he came back to Sanatana Goswami, and I think he told him to throw it in the river. And then he taught him the Hare Krishna mantra. So Ambarish Maharaj, he was a king. And Srila Prabhupada says he was not an ordinary person. Actually, it says that there are three representatives of God: the king, the spiritual master, and the father. Why? Because they will guide. Srila Prabhupada says, and what type of guidance? How one can become Krishna conscious? By education and by culture. And it says not that you guide him how to be hippies. That is misguidance. So we should try to guide the innocent, those that are willing to take up Krishna consciousness or hear what we have to say. And although it was raining last night in the Krishna lounge, we still had many guests and visitors. We had two visitors from ISKCON Detroit. I guess it's called the Fisher Mansion. But Maharaj, my spiritual master, he would always tell that story of how they got that property, very intense. So, we should not be beggars. We should not beg for material things from Krishna, but we should ask for pure devotional service. We should ask for purification of our heart, to get rid of our anarthas or qualities. And then we can be happy, we can be peaceful, and we can also help others properly. Okay, that's all I prepared for this from the short time that I had. Are there any questions or reflections? Balaram Prabhu? I hope you're not going to confess, Balaram Prabhu.
Yes, thank you for confessing, Govardhana. I hope you feel better about yourself.
Oh, yeah.
I feel better. I feel like there's a certain lightness from that. Yeah, I mean, it's not that we're against revealing our minds in relation to mistakes that we've made. We're not against that. But this idea of confessing or revealing one's mistakes and then being lazy about it and not trying to rectify those mistakes over and over and over and over and over again and not really trying. That's the problem. That's what Srila Prabhupada would criticize in religion. Like, which you mentioned, this is just in addition to what you said. It's not subtracting what you said. But Srila Prabhupada would criticize the leaders. Why aren't you teaching your followers how to be sinless? Instead of this process, you just make mistakes and then you say sorry and then you make the same mistakes and you say sorry and you make the same mistakes and you say sorry. And it's like at one point you wonder, are people trying, or are they, what's, like in a relationship, if somebody made the same mistake like over and over and over again, and there doesn't seem like there's much endeavor to try to rectify that, you'd be a little annoyed with that person. So anyways, just a comment. And yeah, you're mentioning how after church people were honking and this and that and fighting with each other. It reminds me when I was in Gita Nagari at some festival there, which His Holiness Giriraj Swami and His Holiness Radhanath Swami were there giving talks, and a lot of devotees there. And then I was in the car, His Holiness Giriraj Swami, and we were a few others, and we were leaving, and some devotee comes in his car, and like there's a few and they're just not letting us back out and this and that, and the Giriraj Swami makes a comment. He's just like, all these seminars, these classes, and they won't even let us back out. It's not good. So yeah, there has to be some practical Vaishnava behavior and etiquette developed. So anyways, just some comments.
Dravida Prabhu and then Nanda Vrindavan.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that, when you read the Bhagavad Gita, we're just reading chapter 13 now. And if you recall, there's a whole list from text 8 to 12, I think it's 5 verses, of elements of knowledge that are necessary for devotees to have, starting with humility, But then in that list, there is also Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Dosha Anudarshanam. To always be aware, that's what it means, Anudarshana means to see and be aware of the evils. And Vijay got on my case for this word evil. He said, you should be changed. Why is it evil? You usually think of disease as evil. Not in the ordinary sense, right? But there's another meaning to evil, means it's something which causes suffering. Not just that it's, evil. So anyway, why would Krishna include this amongst all of these important elements of knowledge? And
so it was changed. It was something before evil. What was it?
No, it was not changed. It's just that Vijay was suggested that I change it, that it should be a correction. But I pointed out to him, you look on the dictionary, and one of the meanings is evil. Is, and Prabhupada used it elsewhere, something that is painful. That's awesome. So anyway, because we have this verse here, and the one quoted in the purport. You read the little short purport, right? Mm-hmm. And the quote from the famous verse from Bilvamangal Thakur, that mukti, he just follows. If you're a sincere devotee, then she's waiting to serve you. In other words, it's automatically achieved if you just be a good devotee. But the way I understand it is that, especially for those who are trying to enter onto the path of devotional service and be steady, that the desire to get out of this material world is an okay impetus, and Krishna talks about it, in the Bhagavad Gita. But as you progress, that becomes less and less your motive, and at a certain point, it's not at all. But and then it's not nanam sundani, the famous verse. So that's something I think, and that's why, and oftentimes in Prabhupada's lectures that he would give to outside audience, a Sunday feast lecture, and general people, not just the devotees, he would talk about that. To understand that we're not the body, and that no matter what you do, there's going to be old age, disease, and death, and rebirth. And therefore, we should try to get out of this round of birth and death, and that's a very good impetus to get people on the path. But as you progress in devotional service, that becomes less and less of your motivation. It should, as you progress, that you see, because you're feeling liberated, you're feeling natural vairagya. In other words, the ropes that bind you to this world, which is material desires, are being weakened or even cut, and so you don't have any separate desire for liberation. You feel yourself being liberated, and so you much more try to cultivate, your relationship with Krishna, with the devotees, and everything like that. Anyway, that's the comment.
Thank you so much. Nanda Vrindavan.
I had this question that, like, as a devotee, most of the time we compare the material world as tool or whatnot. But at the same time, saints like Vaishnava saints like Prabodhananda Saraswati says that Vishwam Param Sukhayate, like the world is full of happiness. So, as a what is your opinion, like how to perceive this seemingly opposite, contrasting sentences by Vaishnava devotees?
Okay. I was at Balboa Park distributing books, and there was this Mataji. She said, everything is God. And I said, you're right, but how? How do you see that? And she didn't have an answer for that. But in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna would teach us how do we see Krishna in this world. And he starts listing, I'm the pure taste and water. I am the light of the sun and the moon. I am the original fragrance of the earth. So when we understand that these elements, Krishna says, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego are my separated energies, we can understand that this is Krishna's energy. And especially in devotional service, we can use these things in the service for Krishna. And a devotee, like Dravida Prabhu said, we're not worried about heaven or hell. So that's real liberation. But a devotee sees Krishna, tries to see Krishna at all times. And Balaram Prabhu, I was listening to his class on my way to the school yesterday. But yeah, he sees happiness everywhere he goes because it's in relation to Krishna. Yeah. I'll tell you a quick story. Maybe Mukunda Charna is still cooking. He fell asleep. So there was this businessman. He was very wealthy. And he went to a sadhu, a saintly person, and he said, I need help. My mind cannot stop thinking of sense gratification. So the saint, he told him, this is what you do. And so he said, you have a week left before your death. And then the businessman, he was very shocked. So he said, this is what you do. You say goodbye to your family, you close your shop, So he did that. He said goodbye to all of his family members, his business and everything. And then he started performing pious activities in hopes that in his next life, it'll be a better life than what he had. So he was very busy like this. And then he came back to the saint, and then the sadhu told him, during this week, has your mind thought of sense gratification? And he said, no. He said, I was too busy, So the sadhu told him, this is how you should live life every day. Perform pious activities or spiritual activities like it's your last. And when I heard this story, I thought, such a wonderful mindset, Not this YOLO, you only live once, try to enjoy, but knowing maybe today is my last day, So I should chant sincerely. I should chant my rounds very nicely. And attentively, render nice service to the Vaishnavas. Because after all, padam padam yad vipadham natesham, then every step there's danger. So in this way, we're not hankering after sense gratification or prestige or fame, And we start performing activities that really matter. Srila Prabhupada said, how do we measure our work? Is our work satisfying Krishna? Okay. Thank you for your time and attention. Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.